Heartily welcome to everyone to the Discover Rolfing Structural Integration webinar with Judit Ruiz-Onandi. She will be here soon. I mean, she's already here, but I'd like to introduce her. She will be today's speaker in the webinar. And Judit is advanced Rolfer. She is Rolf movement practitioner and also teacher in training at the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute in Munich. And she will guide you through the webinar, which will take about 1 hour. And after this, we will have about half an hour time for personal question and answers. So if you have any questions arising, please take a note and keep it till about 8 o'clock. That would be great. And yes, my name is Andrea Nossem, and I work for the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute in Munich, and I'm in charge of the interests and the first year students. So if you have any kind of question concerning the training, please get in contact with me. You will get the email at the end again, but we all had already contact via email. So I invite Judit. Are you there? Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. So, welcome all to the webinar. And I'm planning to talk for around 55 minutes. Please have all your microphones muted. If not, Andrea is going to do the honors to mute you. So it will be like around 55. Of course. Yeah, now.
No, sorry.
No worries. So we have like half an hour for questions and answers. And I'm going to talk about what is Rolfing structural integration. Of course, why do we give so much importance to gravity? What's fascia, which is our focus as Rolfers? How do we look at posture through the tensegrity model? How does a Rolfing session look like? The tools that we use as Rolfers, and finally, I'm going to talk about Ida Rolf. Nevertheless, I'm actually going to start with her, if you don't mind. So Ida Rolf was born at the end of the 19th century. So in the First World War, women were given opportunities that were not there for them before, for example, going to university. So yeah, she went to university, she became a chemist, she has a PhD in biochemistry, and she studied and worked at the Rockefeller Institute, and afterwards she went to Switzerland, and she studied also mathematics and nuclear physics. So as you see, like she was interested in a lot of science. On the other hand, she was also very interested in healing methods like homeopathy that she studied, and yoga, osteopathy, chiropractor, Alexander technique, etc. So she started developing her method, structural integration, later known as Rolfing. And she started teaching it also as days, workshops to chiropractors and osteopaths. And soon she realized that they were taking her point of view as a set of techniques instead of a different point of view from them. So she stopped teaching for them and she started her own teaching from zero of what is Rolfing structural integration, which is a system of hands-on body manipulation to help align the body within gravity. So we focus on fascia to help free the body from restricting patterns, to allow a more balanced and efficient posture and movement to emerge. As certified Rolfers, we use a specific quality of touch and education to support our clients in improving their posture, their body use, sensorial perceptiveness, and movement patterns. So what all this means is that we touch bodies like a physiotherapist will do, a chiropractor CH practitioner, massage therapist, osteopath, each of us, we have our quality of touch. Unfortunately, it is quite complicated to explain that over the internet, even though I'm going to try to do it just a tiny bit. So we have quality of touch that focuses, for Rolfers, we focus on fascia. Each method also has a different goal. Our goal is to align bodies in gravity. So like this, a posture that is more balanced and efficient will emerge. And we use several methods or several, means and tools that I'm going to explain to you later. But why do we give so much importance to gravity? Actually, this was one of the revolutionary ideas of Ida Rolf. Again, this was beginning mid-20th century when she said that the mass of our body is also subject to gravity, not only buildings. And this can be seen, for example, in what we talk a lot nowadays, that is the forward head posture that you can see in this left image, where my head in relation to my thorax is rather in front. You can see it also as like these volumes that I put with brown circles. And you can imagine that to keep my head in front of my torso, and so that my head is still looking forward instead of falling, I need some effort, which will be more than if my head is in relation to my torso stacked on top of it because of the force of gravity that is vertical. And it's going to happen the same if my head is behind my torso. It's going to take more effort. And we can extrapolate that again to the torso in relation with the pelvis. As you can see, I'm always talking about relationships between different parts of my body, and relationship between my body and gravity. So here we can see the three postures where my thorax in relation to my pelvis is rather in. Rolf. So the beginning is description of the elements. I'm just going to double check that everything is going on smoothly. And if not, please, Andrea, let me know. So yeah, on the left side, we have this 4-year-old boy where the different parts of the body are symbolized by blocks, and how the blocks are not really stacked on each other, on top of each other, and how after a session, the series, which is a 10-session series, the segments are more stacked on each other. And we sometimes use this second image that you can see on the right side, where we have a set of blocks that are rather disorganized, which is opposed to if we organize those blocks in relation to gravity, where at least to me, it gives me a sense of lightness. And now I invite you to do a self-exploration of all this that I said, also for me to kind of set. So I invite you please to get up, stand, preferably without shoes. And this is, let's say, the neutral of today for you. And you can check in where in your body it feels relaxed, where in your body you feel your areas that hold you. For example, I'm going to just give some references. How do you feel your neck and your shoulders? How do you feel in your lower back and your belly. How do you feel on your knees? Are they bent, stretched? The activation in your legs, and how is the weight on your feet? Just a little scan. And I invite you to take a couple of deep breaths to have an impression of your breath. Is it easier to breathe in? Is it easier to breathe out? Do I feel some areas that it's quite free to when I breathe in and I breathe out? And now I invite you to touch your head. So this is one volume. Touch your torso. That's another volume. Touch your pelvis. I'm going to put myself a profile so you can see me a tiny bit better. And now I invite you to take the head and the torso and bring it a tiny bit in front of the pelvis. And stay there for a bit. So first, take a bit of time to let go unnecessary tension to keep this placement. And again, do I feel some areas of my body that needs to be active in order to keep me like this? I'm going to give again the same references. How do I feel in my neck and my shoulders? How do I feel on my belly and my lower back? What about the knees? Are more bent? Are more stretched? How is the weight of my feet? And I take a couple of deep breaths and I see if it is different than before. You might notice that the lower part of the body needs to accommodate in order to carry the torso and the head in this forward placement. So maybe something happened lower in the body when I moved my head and my torso forward. So again, I invite you to return back to your original placement. Check in how it is. This is neutral for me today. And we are going to do the same, but bring in now the head and the torso a tiny bit back in relation to the pelvis. I stay there for a tiny bit, just releasing extra tension that I don't need. And again, the same references. How does it feel like in my neck, my shoulders, my lower back, my belly? Are my knees maybe more stretched, straightened, more bent? Is the weight on my feet different? And I invite you to take a couple of deep breaths to have an impression again of the breath's quality. And then you can return back to your neutral. You can also sit. And I would love if you can give some feedback in the sense of kind of more somatic meaning how does it feel for you? For example, was it easier to inhale in one of these three placements or exhale? Did you feel the weight of the feet that changed? Did you feel like some accommodations of the different parts of the body when you moved the torso and the head forward or back, like for example, knees bent or knees stretched? So I'm going to give you like 1 minute if you want to write something. Like this, I have a bit of water. Oh, and I just saw now the volume. I hope you can guys hear me well. I'm going to continue. Maybe you felt, I guess you felt, that when we move the upper part of our body forward or back, something needs to be lower to accommodate so I don't fall forward or backwards. And this is better understood if I take into consideration fascia. So fascia, according to Dr. Ida Rolf, she said it was the organ of form. Again, Ida Rolf developed Rolfing structural integration in mid-20th century. And by then, fascia was thought of structure that didn't have any function. And now there are a lot of researches going on, and actually fascia surrounds every muscle, organ, bone, ligament, tendon, nerve, and vessel in the body. These two images are from a video that you can find on YouTube called Strolling Under the Skin from the surgeon Jean-Claude Guimberteau. On the left side, this left image is about a microscopic image of fascia of a human being that is alive. So you can see that is kind of white fibers, kind of whitish fibers, and they have a bit of like lubrication of or water, because when we move, those fibers, they rearrange with each other. This is similar to an orange. So imagine the white lining that we find in an orange. When we peel the orange, this white lining is surrounding and containing the fruit, but that layer is not smooth. It has kind of fibers, and those fibers enter into the fruit to contain and separate each segment of the orange. If you continue looking further, it also goes into the segment to contain and separate each microsegment. But if we take the orange and we move a tiny bit one segment, that force is going to be transferred to the other segment. So it interconnects them too. And this is what happens in fascia. It is a continuum medium because we have a fascia that surrounds my whole body, the superficial fascia. And then the fibers start going in the body to surround every muscle, every organ, every bone, ligament, And in healthy fascia provides gliding capacity. And you can see that by, if I put my arm like this, and I touch my forearm, and I move my fingers, I can feel muscles that are activating, contracting, and relaxing, because there are several layers of muscles. Those muscles, they need to have some gliding capacity in order to function properly. And this is what happens with the appearance or with the existence of fascia that provides this gliding capacity from them. It also transmits force. As I said, with the orange, when I move a segment, other segments are also going to be moved by it. As I said, well, previously, fascia was thought to be a passive material, but now there has been some researches going on where it's already proven that there is a much richer presence of sensory nerves in fascia tissue than in muscles. Fascia participates actively in proprioception, interoception, and exteroception. So proprioception is the ability of my body to know where the different elements of my body are and the movement. So for example, I don't need to be looking at my hands or my feet to know where they are and if they are moving or not and how they are moving. Interoception is the ability of my body to feel within itself. Do I feel pleasure? Do I feel pain? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? And exteroception is the ability of my body to know where I am in space. So I know that I have something here that I cannot touch. If there is something very near me, I know where it is, where is down, where is up. Nowadays, there are also several researches that are going on about the relationship between fascia, autonomic nervous system, emotional regulation, and immune regulation. And the two images below, well, basically they are the same image. In the second image, I was just having fun coloring the fascia in green. And it's basically the forearm. If I cut the forearm and I look at it like this, is what you are going to see. And you can see how it is enveloping the whole forearm. And then it's like little compartments. And each compartment is going to hold one muscle or one bone, etc. It is as if we have a big network. It's like a spider web where the bones are kind of floating like in those bags. And then from here, we can go into how we see the whole body. So when we talk about the whole body, we can see it from different models. One model is a mechanical model, like a toy. So I have levers, which will be the bones. I have hinges that will be the articulations. And then in order to move the bones in relation to the lever, there is the muscle. And this is how I move my body. If I take into consideration fascia and how everything is connected with everything, I can take it from the point of view of a tensegrity model, which is tensional integrity model, where there are solid structures like struts that are held in place by these elastic structures. Actually, fascia is also elastic and plastic. The bones are not touching each other, so the solid structures are not touching each other, but you can imagine how if I put pressure in one point in this tensegrity model that you can see in the middle image, that force is going to be transmitted throughout the whole organism until it arrives to a balance. That is different point of view from a mechanical point of view, where, for example, I can take the toy, I can take the head off, and the toy still continues working. In a tensegrity model, everything is connected with everything. The right image is an image of the column, our spine, where the solid structures are not really touching each other. They are held in place by elastics. And this is how we see posture as a global and holistic event. The perfect posture doesn't exist. It's not that we are going to put all the segments one on top of the other, and then we cannot move. Of course, every time we breathe in and we breathe out, everything moves. But what we can do is we can improve posture. And that was another revolutionary idea of Ida Rolf, that she said that bodies can change for the better. It's not that we are getting older and then we have more pain and we cannot do anything about it, but we can balance tensional forces throughout the myofascial networks. So the bodies have the possibility to be more efficient, so we will have energy to do other things. And how do I arrive to having the posture I have today? It's because of many reasons, but one of them is habit. So for example, if I have the habit of being 10 hours a day sitting, in a computer and I don't do another movement of, for example, opening, my fascia, which is a tool for the body to support me, is going to mold to being very good at keeping me here. Because if I don't really move and I have a sedentary lifestyle, what happens is that fascia starts to become more dry. And then the gliding capacity starts to be limited. So muscles cannot really glide on top of each other and everything becomes harder to move. Of course, we can work so that fascia becomes again hydrated and it becomes again mobile. And here you can see like different body postures. Like on the first image, you can see what we were talking about in the beginning of the webinar, this forward head posture, where the head in relation to the thorax is in front of the thorax. But I invite you to cover the head of this person and just imagine putting the head on top of the thorax. Well, at least to me, if I think about that, I can imagine that this person will fall back. Because again, it's a whole body event. The head is in front of the thorax, but actually the thorax is behind the pelvis. And the pelvis is kind of in front of the middle of the foot. So the whole body arrived into a balance where the center of gravity of the whole body is somewhere in my feet. And this is what happens and for me to arrive into a balanced posture. So now, how does a Rolfing session look like? Maybe many of you already had the Rolfing sessions, but for the people that didn't, a typical Rolfing session is around 75 to 90 minutes long, and we always interview our clients, especially for a first session, but of course in every session too. And questions that we normally ask is what brings a client to a Rolfing process and which is their goal. And then we will ask history of accidents and injuries and surgeries, the overall feeling they have. Of course, each person is unique and they have their unique history and their goal. But we can say that people come normally either because of a pathology or because they want a performance improvement. A pathology meaning they have pain or discomfort, especially if it is chronic pain. It can be from migraines to shoulder pain to lower back pain to every time I run, I have pain in my ankle. And other people come because of performance improvement. For example, I feel very stiff. I would like to have more vitality in my body. I would like to feel more connected to my body. People come in feeling that they have trauma stored in their body. They already went to talk therapy, but they want to process trauma from the perspective of the body. And after that, we are also going to observe our client's body, what we call in gravity, standing, walking, taking deep breaths, seeing the arm movements. So we are taking which parts of the body moves, which parts are a bit steady. And we might also ask some somatic questions to our clients, more or less the questions that I was already kind of asking you. How does it feel on your neck? Is it easier to inhale, to exhale? And from there, we will ask clients to lie on the massage table. This is when the majority of the myofascial manipulation happens. And at least in Europe, we ask clients to be in underwear to be able to hook into the tissue. But please, if you have any trouble with that, just tell your Rolfers. We can always work around it. And we don't use oil. And it's not that the session finishes there. Then we go the last 5 to 10 minutes into what we call integration in gravity. So it's seated or standing or walking, so that clients can incorporate those changes that they start feeling in the massage table into their consciousness to create new habits. And new habits take a bit of time. So I kind of already talked about which tools we use as Rolfers in a session, but now we are going to go a bit more in detail. So Dr. Ida Rolf asked the fundamental question, what condition must be met for the human body structure to be in harmony with gravity so that the whole person can function as optimally and efficiently as possible? So for us, structure and function are very connected. So how my body is going to affect how my body moves. And how my body moves is also going to affect how my body is. As Rolfers, to create an environment where our client can function as optimally and efficiently as possible, we use, of course, touch. We mobilize fascia and connective tissue, but we also use education of body use. We open the door to enhance sensorial awareness, and we use a series of sessions because we want a person to go into a different posture, a different pattern, and that needs a bit of time. So touch, the tools of touch is basically our hands, sometimes also our forearms or our elbows, and like fascia that is surrounding the whole body. Many times we work with both hands at the same time, surrounding the structure that we want to work on. We can use our whole palm, we can use our finger pads, the knuckles, one hand supporting the segment and another hand working, or both hands working at the same time. And yes, it's very complicated to explain the quality of touch over the internet, but we are going to try and do something. So here you have the image is basically the same image that I showed you before, but this is the image of the lower leg. And you can see the skin and the subcutaneous fat layer, which is the subcutaneous fat layer is the yellow part. That can be easily moved in all directions. And then you can see this blue line surrounding all the structures underneath. That is superficial fascia. So we are going to try and mobilize the skin and subcutaneous fat and also the superficial fascia. So I invite you to blow your fingertips. So just for you to feel how little you have to do to feel something. So your hand, your body is very sensitive. So if I just blow very, very little, I can already feel. And I invite you to put your hand in your arm or on your thigh. It's easier if it is on skin. And now imagine that you have glue in your hand. So the 5 fingers are touching the structure. The palm is touching the structure. And when I touch, this is a two-way street. I touch and I receive touch. I send touch and I am also being touched. That's also very important because we need to sense what is happening. So now imagine that the skin of my hand became one with the skin of the structure I'm touching. And we can traction the skin up to my hand here, or I can traction down to my elbow. I am not gliding on the skin. I'm going to do the gliding. What I don't want you to do, this will be gliding. So I want to kind of have a glue, have enough present to hook into the skin, and maybe something that is underneath, and go up, go down, feel that. Yes, it can move. And now you can also traction it up to the hand. This is what I'm doing. And rotate it. So I can rotate to one side. I can rotate to the other side. I can even keep it rotated and move my hand and my arm in supination and pronation. And there is where I start mobilizing also the superficial fascia, the skin, the subcutaneous fat layer. So of course, this kind of touch techniques are much more explained in the touch workshops of Rolfing. So touch is a big part of a session, but it's not the only part of a session. So we also use education of body use. A lot of clients come to a session and they say like, well, I would love to know how to sit in a way that I don't feel that my shoulders are so engaged, for example. So we will give some references for clients to realize what is happening in their bodies. For example, and you can do it with me, we can slouch. That's the first image. And maybe you already felt like the pelvis. Down in the pelvis, there are the sit bones, which are these two bones that you can feel that are touching the chair underneath you. I return back to my neutral. I slouch again. So I invite you to go into slouching and into neutral several times. And pay attention to if you feel that the connection of the sit bones is different on the chair. Of course, by that time, in a session, we already worked in the myofascial layer, so this movement becomes much easier. But I can imagine that you feel how when you slouch, the sit bones kind of go forward and you are sitting behind. And you go neutral, and the sit bones are more like facing down to the table, to the chair, sorry about that. We can also think about, let's say, sticking our bum out. That is what you can see on the right image, and become to neutral. And if you do it several times, you are going to feel how you are sending the sit bones towards the back when you stick your bum out, and the sit bones return to neutral. So if we go from one extreme that is slouching to the other extreme that is sticking our bum, we could reference that according to how is the feeling I have in my sit bones. And then we will be asking clients a question, how do you feel better? Where does it feel that you can breathe easier? How do you feel in your shoulders? So all that is also part of the session, so that people can find a place where they feel more organized, lighter, with less discomfort. Another tool that we use is sensorial awareness, which is actually very connected to education. I was the whole time explaining how I'm asking the client, how does it feel better? Do you feel the breathing, it's easier here? Do you feel uncomfortable? Things like that is for our clients to sense in themselves, because we are not really saying to our clients, well, you have to be like this. And we say, well, this is the perfect posture. First, because it doesn't exist. And second, because what we want is to feel in ourselves, how does it feel better? Because like this, we can change our habit. And as I said, we are going through a series of sessions. Traditionally, we go to what we call a 10-session series. Here we have an image of a young man that went through the 10-session series, and you can see how after the session 1, if you compare the right side of the body and the left side of the body, they are pretty different. You can also see how the weight is more on the left foot than on the right, and how throughout the session, there is a process where both sides, they are becoming more and more near a conceptual midline, and the feet are more underneath the pelvis. That is another example of people that went through the 10 sessions. So in this example of the old lady, we can see before session 1 how the head in relation with the torso is in front, forward head posture. The torso in relation with the pelvis is in front. To me, at least, the feeling is a feeling of heaviness, opposed to after the 10 sessions where the head, torso, and pelvis, they are more stacked on each other. And at least to me, it gives me the feeling of lightness. The image on the right, it's about a woman with quite a scoliotic pattern. I'm not really going to explain that, but just to see how bodies can change for the better. And as I said, one of the first things we do when we have clients coming is asking what brings you here, what is your goal, the history each client has. So we cater our session to each client. But we do it from the point of view of seeing how the client is and what the client brings, and we mix it with the conceptual goal of the 10-session series. So for the first session, our goal is to free the breath for inspiration and expiration. Of course, it depends on the posture that the client comes in, that we are going to do one thing or the other thing. For session 2, we are checking at how the feet connect to the ground, how we land and how we push off, and how that force is being transferred through the whole body. For session 3, we are checking at the balance between the front and the back of the body. In session 4, we go again to the feet, but we look at it from another point of view. Like, for example, when we walk, we can walk also in a surface that is not flat. So we need the capacity to invert and evert the feet. And all this movement in the feet needs to travel through the legs, the pelvis, and up through the torso. Session 5 talks about the balance between the container and content. Container is the more superficial structures in the body, the content being, for example, the viscera. So our viscera, our organs, of course, they are related to the more superficial structures, but they need to have a bit of independence from them. In session 6, we look at the support of the back from the toes, through the legs, the pelvis, all the vertebrae, the ribs from the back, and the head. In session 7, we zoom into neck and head. Nevertheless, in every session, we are going to touch the head and the neck, but we work mainly in lower parts of the body. So like this for session 7, the strains we have in the neck and in the head, very probably they will be just local to the head and the neck and will not be adaptation of strains that are happening lower in the body. Sessions 8, 9, and 10 are what we call integration sessions. And as you saw, like throughout the whole presentation and the whole sessions, we are looking at the whole body, but for these 3 sessions is even more. So we see how the force, how the landing is being carried throughout the multiple planes and the multiple articulations. And well, just to finish, I'm going to finish with Ida Rolf, even though I kind of said what I wanted to say about her. So she was very interested in alternative healing methods, as I said, like homeopathy, osteopathy, chiropractic, yoga, Alexander technique, etc. And she always had a strong scientific focus, but she also recognized the value of solutions that came from intuition. She explored the effect of gravity on our bodies and observed that sustained improvement of ailment and the overriding sense of well-being depended heavily on the balance of the body's structures in gravity. Dr. Rolf was convinced that an imbalance in the body statics and structure affects the network of connective tissue. And this has an unfavorable effect in the form of compensation, like loss of elasticity, adhesions, forced posture, etc. And well, she studied biochemistry, as I said. She was part of the Human Potential movement in Esalen. And in 1971, she founded the Rolf Institute of Structural Integration in Boulder, Colorado, that now it's called Dr. Ida Rolf Institute. In Munich, which is the headquarters for Europe, is Dr. Ida Rolf Institute Europe. And yeah, that is basically it. If you didn't go to a Rolfing session and you are checking how am I going to find a Rolfer, you can check the Ida Rolf Institute Europe website. And in the tab Find Rolfer, that's a list of certified Rolfers in Europe. Or you can contact the Rolfing regional associations. This is all of them, of course, in Europe, in America, and in Asia, there are also associations. And if you're thinking about training, maybe to become a Rolfer, or just because you want to know more about how Rolfing is, the next trainings are held in Amsterdam and in Munich, Munich being the headquarters. In English, you have the Meet Rolfing Introduction course, which is 2 days. And then in English and in German, you have level 1. To become a certified Rolfer, we have level 1, level 2, level 3. But level 1 is a set of 9 workshops of 3 days each that are organized in 3 themes. The movement workshops is about how do I see my client? Which kind of strategies can I use to see what is going on? And also, how am I going to use my body posture? Then, of course, anatomy workshops to know your anatomy and know how to touch it. And then in the touch workshops, it's more about the technique to go into the fascia. And I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for listening.